Hi everyone, Sweet the Treat Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Kim Gordon album, The Collective. Here we have a brand new solo album from Kim Gordon, bassist, vocalist, songwriter, true hero of the underground rock scene. Not just through her tenure as 1/5 of the legendary noise rock outfit Sonic Youth, but numerous other groups as well. And increasingly, as of late, Kim has been focusing on solo material, dropping the No Home record back in 2019, which I wasn't crazy about, but it did have its moments and surely proved that Kim, even in this late stage of her career, is hungry for new sonic frontiers, experimentation, which I would say is even more so the case for Kim and her close collaborator, Justin Rayson, on The Collective here. Now, there's been a lot of discourse in the lead up to this album, especially in the way singles like Bye have taken off in certain pockets of the internet. This track sees Kim in an almost dispassionate fashion, listing off all of these things that one might sensibly bring along with them for a trip. Hand cream, vibrator. And she's doing this over a very thick, punchy, overwhelming, distorted trap beat. Not exactly the type of production rock veterans tend to gravitate toward, which has provably been part of the draw toward this record. But the more I actually listened to The Collective, the more Kim's direction on it made complete sense. Cause sure, there are a lot of beats on this project that have a very deep root in hip-hop music, between the rattling hi-hats and the 808 perks and a lot of the grooves and chopped up samples and sequences. But by that same token, consider Kim's very familiar vocal delivery on these tracks, the guitar riffs, the noises, the shots of distortion laced throughout these cuts. A lot of the instrumentals on this thing are pure sonic mayhem, abrasive psychedelia of the highest order, and in that sense, Kim Gordon is not only going back to basics, but also in a way I see this record as a nod to a lot of the earliest days and sounds of the New York no-wave scene, which is where artists like Sonic Youth and Suicide and Mars and DNA and Lydia Lunch came out of. And this movement, this time period, wasn't just about making discordant music. It really represented an embrace of the avant-garde in the rock underground at the time. And yeah, once again, The Collective here very much exists in that same spirit. And for sure, you could frame this album another way. You have an older artist who is borrowing from newer, trendier, more relevant aesthetics and songwriting ideas, and applying ideas and aesthetics and songwriting modes to that they're more comfortable with, maybe as a personal challenge, maybe as a means of staying current. Either way, doing this can often leave a lot of legacy artists sounding like they're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, which is a minor fear I had going into this record, especially with how much the progression of tracks like I'm a Man drag on toward the final leg, even if I do agree with the commentary around entitlement and gender disparities that are in the lyrics on that track. But after having heard this record several times over, I'm happy to say that a lot of my worries going into it were completely unfounded, as I think The Collective is as visceral, bold, and exciting an experience as any prior artistic peak Kim has had earlier in her career. And the proof of this is in the tracks themselves, like I Don't Miss My Mind, which is a disassociation trunk knocker with these distorted, lumbering, heavy rhythms and bright bits of shoegazy hums shooting into the mix every once in a while. Kim gives some spoken word on top of this that's pretty entrancing, really a picture of completely losing it mentally, at least how I'm reading it. And I love how the gaps in the instrumental are progressively filled in with these harsh and hideous noises. Meanwhile, the track It's Dark Inside hits even harder. I almost have no words for this one, honestly. I kind of feel like I'm being pulled into the dark recesses of Kim's mind here, and I'm just succumbing to my fate, that I'm just going to be digested as I'm in the belly of this monster. The track is sporadic, it's ever-changing, it really kind of keeps me on my toes. Conversely, Psychedelic Orgasm is a lot more meditative and repetitive. I love the way the hi-hats skip across the head-nodding beat on this one, plus the fuzzy guitar passages that usher in the pre-chorus marry kind of well with these auto-tuned vocal riffs that sound like something from the new Lil Yachty record, which isn't too surprising because Justin actually worked on the Yachty record, so there's clearly some kind of crossover connection there aesthetically, stylistically. The track Treehouse is an industrial beat hellscape on the level of a Death Grips or even a Clipping. It also helps that the lyrics read like the narrative of a child's
scary
story, or like a nightmare where you're in a forest and you're caught in the midst of a deadly storm at night. From here, the record goes on to a pretty strong finish. Shelf Warmer is another cerebral moment in the track list. It's not the strongest vocal performance from Kim, and the progression is a bit meandering, but there is an intimacy and a sensuality to the track that is kind of intense, especially given how eerie some of the instrumental bits are. Next, The Believers has some of the most killer riff and beat sequences on the entire record. It reminds me of something off of that final Alan Vega album. Then the closer finishes things off with some drum machine punk, which is even more in the spirit of Suicide than the previous track. And of course, the backbone of the song features these kind of clunky, picked bass lines that kind of drive the whole thing groove-wise. Meanwhile, the lyrics on the track are very much a read on brand worship and capitalism, etc. But yeah, overall, like, really strong batch of tracks from Kim with distinct vocal performances, song ideas, very cohesive production from front to back on the record. And ultimately, this album kind of serves as a really interesting crossroads of noise music, of experimental rock, of avant-garde music, and hip-hop and electronic music, industrial music too, which is why I'm feeling a decent to strong 8 on this record. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that upper link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Kim Gordon, forever.